Member for McMahon.
Thanks, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Treasurer. Despite all the talk since he became Treasurer, private sector wages growth is the lowest it's been since records began, while living standards have fallen for a record 7th consecutive quarter. Isn't this just yet another case of the Liberal government being all talk and no action?
The Treasurer has the call.
Mr Speaker, I know those opposite don't share the view of those on this side of the House that the Australian economy is transitioning well and it is growing at a rate of 3% real a year, Mr Speaker, and it's actually Australians who are out there every day working, saving and investing to ensure that that transition takes place successfully. Today we have had the announcement of the figures which show that unemployment has fallen. Have you heard those opposites say that's welcome? We'd love to see that, unemployment falling. Today we have the announcement that youth unemployment has fallen, Mr Speaker, and youth unemployment under this government is lower than it was at the last election, Mr Speaker. And on this side of the House, we have seen consumer confidence raise 11% in the last 6 months. We have seen confidence in the forward look of the next 12 months in our economy rise by more than 20%, Mr Speaker. What we have seen is service exports rise by over 8%, Mr Speaker. Despite the global volatility, despite the uncertainty that's out there, there is a resilience and a strength in the Australian economy that those opposite would seek to deride, Mr Speaker. Now, obviously it is true that in these difficult headwinds that are faced right around the world and also here in Australia, Mr Speaker, we have seen a very modest level of income growth. That is true, Mr Speaker. Those opposite might not have noticed it, but the terms of trade have fallen 30% off their peaks and they've returned to the long-run average, Mr Speaker. Those opposite might not have noticed that we're in a transition from the mining investment boom through to a more diversified economy. But the truth about it is it's working. It's working, Mr Speaker, and it's Australians who are out there making those sacrifices every day that is making it work. It's the small businesses and the medium-sized businesses that are out there making it work every day that we want to lower the burden of taxation on, Mr Speaker, wherever we can to help the earners in this country do better, Mr Speaker. And that is the focus of this government, because that is what you need to do to drive jobs and growth in this economy. Last year, around 300,000 extra jobs, Mr Speaker. Around 300,000, Mr Speaker. And I'm asked about full-time employment, Mr Speaker, and what's happened there. I think there's about 15,000 extra jobs, Mr Speaker, when it comes to full-time employment. So we've got more full-time jobs in these latest figures, Mr Speaker. We've got unemployment coming down. We've got consumer confidence going up. We have a real rate of growth in this country, which is the envy of the developed world, Mr Speaker. And the member for McMahon, coming up here in his audition for Vogue magazine, Mr Speaker, wants to actually talk down the economy. He wants to talk down the economy, Mr Speaker. Well, Mr Speaker, the Australian people will not be intimidated out of their prosperity by an opposition who has no plan for jobs and growth, Mr Speaker. And they won't be intimidated out of their prosperity because they know on this side of the House that we have the plan for jobs and growth, and it's about ensuring that we drive investment in this transitioning economy.